Hi everybody, welcome to interview 5. Today we've got Rob Rowe with us. He's from Unita Group. So what I'll do, just get on and maybe tell us a bit about yourself, Rob.
Thanks, Bryn. Thanks for having me. I'm the Managing Director of Unita Group, and we are a national and international strategy-led design, manufacturer and building business. And we have 150 team members spread out across Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth offices, and we have a new office in New Zealand, and we look after customers internationally and locally in the retail, hospitality, health and commercial sectors. So we're purely a fit out sort of led business, but we have some construction in our service as well, and that's been led by the fact that the customers in our fit out sector have always asked us to build them the shells and build them the infrastructure, and we, over the last 5 or 6 years, have honed our skills now to be an exterior and interior business.
And Rob, going all the way back, mate, why did you originally get into business? How did the journey start?
Well, I grew up in a shop fitting family. My father had his own shop fitting business. So lucky for me, as a young man, my parents would send me on the weekends and my holidays at school to work for Dad and get paid slave labour wages. Cleaning the shelves after a fit out was done and unloading trucks, loading trucks, sweeping the floors in the factory. And I soon migrated into an apprenticeship. Reluctantly, I never wanted to be working for the family. I'd seen across the dinner table the trials and tribulations of being a business owner. Mum and Dad worked in the company. They had, between 30 and 50 staff, depending on the time of year and how the business was in the market. And there was some pretty hairy times there where Mum would say, "We're not eating steak anymore. We've got mince skits," and you go from mince to bread and butter at times because things got tight. And seeing Dad work on weekends a lot and working on our school holidays and not having Dad around was always something. As a young child, you sort of thought, I wanted Dad around, right? So I don't want to be that guy when I grow up. Anyway, as it happens, you turn out to be the man that teaches you everything, and I reluctantly become an apprentice and work for the old man. And I could see from the early years before working for Dad, the way that Dad operated, there could be other ways of doing business. And growing up at school, I was the first group of students at school to have a laptop. And we learned in that year how important digital and technology was going to be in the market in the future. And being the first group of kids in Australia to have a laptop and be told these things, it resonated with me that I was part of an emerging sort of trend or emerging change in the way that things were. And I had this feeling that it needed to be taken liberally and applied in my life going forward. So going to work for Mum and Dad, it was manila folders and paper, and you took a photo of the mum and she'd tick a box, and then she'd draft a purchase order and she'd write it and she'd send it. The check would be drafted and signed. And it was a very slow process, faxing and not knowing who you sent something to. And anyway, it was a complex business, but Dad had a great company and he did a great job, and he was a very respected person in his industry. And the things he taught me was, don't undersell yourself, make sure you're delivering quality. And when I went on holidays and travel with him, it would be often meeting with news agencies in regional Queensland that wanted to refurbish their shops to make their capacity of holding more product available, because news agencies were very product-led businesses where the more product in the shelves, you're more chance of selling, right? And my dad would sit in these rooms and sell them that he could design and build a solution, and he'd make them get more return on their investment, and he did. Now, when I worked for my father, after a period of time, I got in the office and I started really growing his business and growing to the point where we really maximize his production capabilities. But my father was sort of at the last decade of his career as opposed to his first. So the man my father was at this point was a very different man than he was at the beginning. And who I was a guy with 10 times the energy than my dad had at the time, and I wanted to change the way he did business. So there come a point where my father said, "Rob, it's got to be my way or it's the highway." And I went home that night and thought, can I not can I give up on this dream of mine to be the change I wanted to see in the market, to do what my dad wanted me to do, right? Be a good son, be a good family citizen, and take over the family business. Well, I come back the next day and I said, look, I'm sorry, but it's the highway. And my dad booted me out that day.
Wow.
He said, he said very clearly that, there's no place for the things in the way I'm going to do it. And that he didn't want to free with, I think I may have had $64 in the bank and a credit card that was a $3,000 limit that had been completely maxed. I was on my ass with no money, no idea, but I had a lot of ambition to prove him that I could do it. Because, look, I don't think for a second he didn't think I could, but he definitely gave me the energy to show him that I could. And to be honest with you, the first 5 years of my business was about just that, wanting to beat my dad basically and show him how I could do something. And we have a great relationship now, thankfully, but
that's awesome. Tell me about that start part, mate. Like when you went into Unita and you had this vision, and obviously technology sounds like it was going to be a big play in that, because you really wanted to improve these processes. Tell us about the start in Unita and how you implemented the process into there, and how you got that really rolling.
So, look, because I'd never worked for any person in the industry, I literally imagined how it would be if it was different than how I already knew it. And I only knew it from my parents. So I knew that when you were getting requests to submit a tender or, respond to a tender request, it was very challenging to track back then, things you were faxing, things you were emailing, who it went to, who was pricing, who wasn't. Pulling quotes together and aggregating the different tenders that were responding and comparing them, and then choosing the right tender and knowing that you're going in at a margin that's accurate, and also having historical data was important. Because so what I started with was I built a system called Tender Tracking Systems, TTS we called it, and it was just for internal use. And I had an IT support person called Cameron Black. Cameron Black is my co-founder in NextSphere. And I told Cameron all my dramas, and I wanted to build a platform that started with tendering and then went into the project management. And back in within the first 12 months, we started building a, what do they call those systems? Like a access database tender tracking system, right? Yeah. And so my mother said before I left, Robert, you're going to go broke. Like, you will spend every dollar you don't have. You don't follow processes. I've been chasing your ass for the last 5 years working here to do your job properly. And it was true. Like, I was terrible. I had the memory of a goldfish. But just because you don't have a great memory doesn't mean you can't build a great system, and you can't make a system that works from front to back and gives everyone the opportunity to perform, because we're all different as people. But the one thing that makes us have an equal opportunity is putting us in an environment that supports everyone equally. And I don't think that things like Word documents and Excel files and having to remember where something is back then gave everyone an opportunity to be operating equally. The one with a better memory that remembered how to do things well was always the one that did better. So all I wanted to do is just bring some consistency and collaboration into our space that I couldn't find in any other technology platform at the time.
And tell me about that at the start, because I know, we're dealing with this with some of our clients that want to invest in software and they want to use software in their business. But obviously with all the other expenses you have and all the other capital expenses you have, how did you make that decision, or what were the things that you made in that? Was there a budget that you had for that, or did you just kind of start building and then not know how much it was going to cost you, and then or did you have a plan in regards to that when you started?
Look, yeah, I was 23, so to be honest with you, I had some plans. I did definitely. I'm financially astute, but they were very simple. My biggest plan was don't fail. And the easiest way to fail in business is to not know where you're going. So if I don't know whether my tenders are accurately being priced, I don't know my projects are accurately being priced and let and tracking on time correctly, I can be making all sorts of decisions incorrectly. And look, before I had my world-class systems I have today that I've had for many years now, there was a lot of lessons, like a lot of bad experiences. I was like, I think I'm going okay on these jobs and my time is good and my letting's fine. And then I find out that my systems that I was building weren't closing all those gaps that I need to close. And there wasn't the corporate governance that was needed to protect me from mistakes made. So NextSphere is really a byproduct of a lot of lessons learned, a lot of those glass ceilings you're hitting. And every time we learn a lesson, we apply that lesson into the platform. And to prevent us from having the problem again, and for the future, giving the ability for others to not have those same experiences, because those experiences are often what limit, we have a very high failure rate in the construction industry in business. And I put it simply down to businesses not going into business prepared to be the business that they need to be in order to be successful. And success is not you drive a fancy car and you've got this fancy and that fancy. Success is you're delivering value for your customer, value for your team, and value for your family. I think at the end of the day, if you're not in business to create value for everyone, and if you don't set yourself up successfully from the outset with the right systems, you literally cannot generate value. And value is only where money is made. It's money long-term lived is only through creating value.
And what would your advice be for a trade business out there that they know their systems aren't up to scratch at the moment? They know for example, they know they can't produce a cash flow based on what's coming in and what's going out, or they can't real time see the GP on their projects. What would your advice be to those business owners? How do they look for a software? Like, what are the first things they should be doing?
Look, I think the number one thing is a lot of people are afraid of investing. So let's say I'm a $5 million revenue business. Let's just put an average. And most trade businesses are around that revenue, 3 to 5 million. A small trade business is comfortably there. Sole traders are far less, but people with a few staff are around that number.
Yep.
The better question is, what is it going to cost you if you don't get it right? So if you said, oh God, it's going to cost me this much money a year, 10, 20 grand a year to be a better business with a better platform. And then you looked at your revenue at 3 million and let's say you got a 1% better gross margin improvement because you had better control. Or you had a $1 million payroll, but you could save 5% in your payroll because you've got better, tighter tracking of knowing where your hours are going. So you can pull it in before it gets too far out of the way. Or you can manage your cash flow because you've got progress claim structures that allow you to automatically remind you when the payments are due, or seamlessly issue requests and issue progress claims out of your system that allows you to see what your cash profile is. So if you've got a $100,000 job and you've spent 30 and you're due, you can claim for 50, you're going to be 20 grand in front at some point, but for the time being, where you're sitting, you're behind, right? And and I think a lot of businesses, they fear putting in something that's bigger than who they are, because there's a lot of concern out there that you'll overinvest or you don't need it, so why have it? You're doing fine without it, but until you're not doing fine without it. And that day comes. I've been 17 years in business. I've owned manufacturing companies, metal companies, catering equipment businesses, lighting companies, shop fitting businesses, signage companies. I've owned most trade businesses, and every one of them have a different challenge, but they all have the same challenge. If you don't know where your time and your costs are, you can't make good choices about where you're going. And my business has grown because I can see that I'm profitable, and I make decisions about growing due to the fact I know I've got money to grow. Whereas a lot of other businesses end up growing and finding out there's nothing in the pot to pay for that growth. And then they get stuck having to pull down the hatches and go back to where they were or less than they had. And that yo-yo experience in trade businesses, it's not for the faint-hearted. And people that really could be successful with the right systems and processes and the right tools, really good people give up. And I've hired a lot of really good people that have given up, that have come work here because they've had the framework to be their best selves within this organization because of those types of tools made available to them. So failure and success is very often just what have you got available to you at this time to succeed. And systems and tech is critical for that.
And with that systems and tech being critical, where do you see that heading in the next, say, 5 years in the trade space? Like, I know, like, from what I see in the market, the trade businesses doing better are investing in software. That to me is the common denominator. The ones that I see that are scaling up and going above that 5 and 10, when they're getting up to 20 and 30 or above, they're investing a reasonable amount in software, processes, systems. Where do you see that in the next 5 or 10 years? Where do you see some of these guys going, and what do you think the evolution of that will be?
Well, there's a lot of trade businesses that are coming to the end of their time in business, not because they're going broke necessarily, but because they're an older generation. And you know, they're not taking on more risk, which is creating an abundant amount of opportunity for those coming through. And there's always a generation that sort of comes towards the end of it, and then there's a new generation that comes through, right? So 17 years ago, my business was on the way up, and it still is on the way up, of course, but there was a spot available for me to come in and take my piece of the pie. And I'd say right now is the big opportunities for those investing, because there's not an abundant amount of people out there that you can just pull from anymore. And if you don't have a business that's got the right infrastructure, the right behavior, the right marketing, the right values, you just won't succeed. And so technology and systems are one part of a lot of things that you need to have in place. But I actually believe that without it, you're stuffed, because you can't build a collaborative environment. So yeah, there's a huge opportunity for those in coming through, because there's also so much work out there. I look for businesses now, and if you're a business that, you know, we do 150 million revenue, we support hundreds or possibly 1,000 of trades and services around the country, thousands of suppliers. If you're a tradie and you're a pain in the ass to work for, and you're just submitting quotes that aren't clear, and you're submitting claims that aren't accurate, and you're not communicating your variations or your RFIs in a professional manner, well, professional businesses don't want to work with you. So the game's changed. You've got to definitely step up. And during the last couple of years with the pandemic, and you know, a lot of people chose to give up and, you know, batten down the hatches and flick all their staff and, oh, well, let's just sit back and go backwards and ride this one out, will we? Whereas a lot of others, including ourselves, said, well, who we are and how we operate in tough times. You know, everyone can be great as a business in a good time, right? Make a bit of money, be a bit nicer to people. When it gets tough, who you really are comes through. And I've seen a lot of businesses make some really good choices during this last few years, and I've seen a lot of businesses make a lot of choices. And investing in systems is, you know, the last couple of years was the time to double down and invest in yourself, invest in your team, invest in your business, because there was an opportunity there to do that. Okay.
And mate, you talked about the team there as well. So systems is one part, obviously systems and processes. The next part's people. I know you've got a very well documented employee share scheme. You want to kind of explain what that is to some of these trade owners and how that's worked for you? Yeah,
look, so there's been some lessons in that. So how well it's been documented in the media is always the way that it needs to be seen to get more people looking at it. So the original idea was that we would embrace an ESOP, an employee share scheme, that would allow us to engage more people in the business into having value from the business for creating value for the business. And in my earlier years, I definitely had chosen, let's say I picked 5 people, I may have picked 3 that were picked incorrectly, you know, because we didn't maybe have the right metrics to consider what is the person and what is how we do that. So, you know, as a consequence, the the lessons learned were, if you're going to embrace and engage in those sorts of practices, you want to be very clear about what it takes to be a member of that. Because sometimes as a business owner, you may give share options because you're a bit vulnerable at times, right? There's just you, and you want to bring people on the journey, and you want to have them feel like they're a part of that and not leave. I mean, let's be frank, people in the construction industry, if you think about tech as important, the most important other thing is the people. I mean, the tech is the thing we give the people to make them just, it's like a service to them, right? Here's something you guys can all have to make it all easier for you to be you. But people is where it's all at. So my vision was, we get great people to stay, to be engaged, to have value in this business. So the agreement's there, we've got a number of people in it, and over time we'll keep on developing that. For smaller businesses, I don't know, like if you're a small trade business, I don't think it's as important. I think it's probably quite dangerous. There's not enough pie to share.
Yep.
Your vision is long-term to build something. Start at the beginning of your business with determining where are you going to go, right? Because there's all different ways to get there. You might remunerate better, you might give incentive structures, performance bonuses, profit share. My direction was, I authentically feel better for being with the people I've got, and there's some that make that authentically better again. And those that are delivering great value to my customers, great value to my team, and great value to me will be included in that type of agreement, because I love the way my business is, and I believe that you have to reward those that can make things the way that you like them to be. There's no guarantees in life, and it's certainly ESOPs don't guarantee you people staying either. It just gives you an opportunity to say to someone that I value you more than just a guy that gets paid a check every week.
And would you redo it again now? Going back, knowing what you know now, would you still do it, or? We
just have. So what we had, we scrapped. We dealt with that last one, and we've just re-established a new vehicle over the past 24 months. So just about when COVID hit, we was turning, and we've got some great people in this business, and they deserve wholeheartedly to feel like there's something other than we reward and remunerate very well, but I still think that people, sometimes it's nice to know that you can contribute something beyond that, and that's what we've included.
And Rob, you touched on it briefly there, but how's COVID been for your business, and how have you dealt with that challenge?
So I was living in Sydney at the time. We were in the Sydney office. So it was February, I was in Tokyo for a conference with Hoyts, one of my clients, and we were very much in COVID territory, and thankfully I didn't get it. And when we got back, the writing was on the wall that things were really going to be different. And I didn't have a mentor that was said to be a mentor, but I had a very close friend in Sydney, an older gentleman that is one of my clients, but also a good friend. And he said, Rob, you'll be long remembered for how you conduct yourself in this short time. And we were on a plane together flying up to Queensland. And he said, who do you want to be known as being? Because everyone was out there firing their staff and standing them down, and how do I save me? How do I protect me? It was very me, right? The first month, everyone was like, me.
Yeah.
He said, Rob, just hold up. How do you want to be remembered, and how do you want to be seen? Because what you do in the next month will be with you for the rest of your time. So what I decided was we would do everything we could to make sure that our business was viable and our team were employed and productive, and that our customers could get through this. So we had an inordinate amount of money that was owed to us from our customer base, like ridiculous amount of money. We dealt with that respectfully. We didn't ring up abusing our customers. Where's my money? You prick, where's our money? It was, you're going through hardship. We're going through hardship. Our trades are going through hardship. How do we as a group of people will come through this better together, right? That is the key. How does our manufacturing business literally we had a $40 million quarter in the March to June period.
Yep.
It went to like 2007.
Wow.
Our factory went from producing 3,000 hours a week to producing $3 a week. Our project business just went on life support across the whole country. So what we did was we pulled the team together. We told everyone what the future looked like for them, because it was important they knew what it looked like. So we were very clear that we were going to give people holiday pay for a few weeks, and we're going to get our estimating department and our sales team to just win work for whatever we can win it for, to keep everyone back to life. And thank God for JobKeeper, because that got everyone back to work in our business.
Yep.
And we ended up bouncing back. Like, we had 2 months of just pain in the ass it was, and a lot of change, trying to get money that we were owed and get jobs that we wanted to get started again. And then we went into like our biggest quarter we'd ever had at that point, ever.
Yep.
And our customers were like, thank you very much for thinking creatively about how we can all get back to work, because it wasn't possible to be big that next quarter without creatively thinking. Like, we have a brand behavior, which is MacGyver. You know MacGyver, the mullet.
Oh, yep. Yeah. I remember MacGyver.
He uses bombs with paper clips, right?
Yep.
So I'm sitting in the MacGyver room because I believe that if you are like MacGyver, that the impossible can be made possible. And it's only made possible through being creative and being resourceful and being a little bit adventurous too. So we went into our MacGyver behavior, and everyone was given full license to do whatever it took to get everyone back to work. And, you know, we picked up we designed and built a high-end resort in the Gold Coast. We built the largest gym and the most premium gym in the Southern Hemisphere during that period. We built a cinema complex when cinemas weren't even operating, you know, because it happened. We then ended up delivering that year, which was FY21, the same revenue we delivered in FY19, because FY20 went from like a great year to quite an ordinary one. And then this year, because of our behavior, because of how well we managed our customers, our trades, and ourselves, we went from 80 million and we're on target to do 150 this year.
Wow.
And yeah, like, we'd literally just gone like through the roof. And, you know, some would say, oh yeah, but there's just so much work out there. It's like, no, bullshit.
Yeah.
No. The reason we got that work was because how we were during a pandemic with our customers, with our trades, with our team, was why we got the opportunity to do more work in the last 12 months than we've ever had.
Yep.
Because when people see the qualities permeate in tough times, people want to be around those people. They want to work with those people. They want to do business with those people. Yep. I had some trades, for your trade audience out there, that were absolute assholes. Like, because they were afraid, right? It's not their fault, but they were really ruthless. They weren't owed money in the first month, but they were calling him on the first day going, can you pay me now? We're going, no, we can pay you in a month. Oh, but how do we know you'll pay us? So there was a period that everyone thought everyone was going broke. Yeah. I didn't choose to do that because I was experiencing that from certain people. Like, are you going to pay me? Pay me now. And I'm going, what a very, like, I get it, you're afraid, but just think about it. How you post this conversation when the times are better going to be seen. When I remember that's how you treated me, I paid you inside terms. You know, we gave you notice of where we are, what we're doing. We've now doubled. Everyone has to understand that, yeah, this short-lived experience initially we had, that how you respond in that time is how everyone remembers. Now, we still lost people in our business due to COVID, right? We had people that chose to self-select out of the business and go leave because, as you are aware, it went from being extraordinarily quiet to busy again. And the short workforce led to massive rises in remuneration in our sector. So yeah, there's a lot to navigate, but I think we navigated it as good as we could have possibly.
Sounds like you really had that medium long-term goal always in mind as you were going through this. You were still thinking about that medium and long term. So with that in mind, what are the next steps in your business journey? What's next? What's next for you and what's next for the company?
So at the beginning of last year, this is January now, 2023 too. So last year in January, we decided that we would we'd do a JV with another manufacturing company and we'd move our factory into that business. And the reason we did that was during the pandemic, we very much were clear that your safety in numbers, right? So if you're an internal business that's generating only internal revenue in a manufacturing business, and when the lights turn off, like the pandemic happened, that was actually one of our greatest cost centers that cost us the most amount of money during that period. So we decided that being not only a very difficult manufacturing business to operate, they're running at high speeds, like a race car engine, right? Always going full speed. You got to have a service crew that pit stops along the way fixing it. We'd bring it into a bigger fold. So we've got a business now that is doing $20 million of manufacturing and production under one roof with great synergies with our leadership, their leadership, our factory, their factory. That was one of the decisions we took. So we've now going on a journey to just tightening that up, and then we'll keep on aligning that business's growth with its clientele, but also our growth. Unita will go from 150 to 300 million. And I've appointed a CEO. So one thing I learned during those 2 years of the pandemic was I'd moved from Brisbane to my Sydney office, and I was pretty much treating myself like a startup in Sydney, and I'd have a very strong still do leadership team in Queensland, which is our head office. And for many years, I'd built the operating systems and been the operator and the conductor. And I got to this point in Sydney where I was the startup guy again. And I'm out there, strategy, design, creative, finding people, building the business the way that you can once you've learned how to build a business, because I moved from Brisbane with this 100 staff I had 2 staff in Sydney at the time. And then I come back in a pandemic and dealt with all of the world's worst issues for 2 years and doubled growth and had some attrition, went from 80 staff to 150 staff, went from Brisbane office to Sydney office to a Melbourne and a Perth and New Zealand office over that period, relocated the factory to a larger factory with a lot of things changed. So I decided to hire a CEO who started last year in December. And it's actually been, apart from all the other great people, one thing we learned was stability and predictability are 2 things that and I think everyone values. And what we haven't had is predictability and stability in the market the last 2 years. Nothing's been predictable. You don't know whether the borders are changing or not. And stability, you don't know whether there's revenue next month or not because the lack of predictability in the market. What the CEO brought is a level of stability and predictability that how we operate will not change, because we've come to the conclusion through the lessons learned how we set up our business now as an 80 to 150 million. Imagine that growth. Like with a relatively, you're doubling the staff, you're doubling your revenue, and you've lost some of the people that you had that were the business you were before. That was quite a journey. So our plan is our manufacturing business, just get it tighter. It's a very good business. It's one of our unique selling propositions. Not many businesses can do the type of work we do. We want to continue to expand our footprint across the country. So we will expand into South Australia and the ACT in the future. We want to really double down on our core. So we are known as the leading retail fit-out company, but we've also ventured into, over the past 7 years, health, commercial workplace, hospitality. And so we've now got more focus in those sectors, which gives us, we're not watering down our value in each sector. Like for a period of time there, we did it all, but did you have a double footing in each one? You didn't, because you get a little bit too much to too many. So you need to tighten it up and get the right people driving the angles and the avenues. So it's just, we've worked out what we do well, and we've worked out also what we suck at. Like we've done a lot of work the last few years that we went backwards on too, right? So
Yeah.
You got to look at the lessons learned and the type of things you take on. And I think during the pandemic, everyone can probably say they've all made some pretty shitty decisions as well. Just chosen projects because you were scared you wouldn't be busy, keeping people busy. Inflation affected us all majorly. We've had projects go backwards 5% because of cost rises. So
yeah. With that lessons learned, mate, the last question I got for you, if you went back all the way to when you started and you left your dad's business, knowing everything you know now, what's that one piece of advice you'd say to the younger Rob that's just going out about to start this journey again?
There's probably a couple of things I'd tell myself. I was very afraid to say no because I thought that the word yes was what I was probably had a low self-esteem in business. I was young. Can you do this, Rob? Yes. I was afraid of saying no, right? Because I'd look young and dumb. So I used to say yes a lot, and yes cost me a lot. Got me a lot and cost me. So I'd say that just being a bit more honest with yourself and honest with others about what you can and can't do. Actually, in my first 5 years of business, I would be $30-40 million more revenue a year if I didn't say yes when I should have said no in the first 5 years. I lost some clients and lost respect from some people that I'd said yes to I shouldn't have. And I didn't say it because I was a liar. I said it because I wanted to say yes, I wanted to do it, but I didn't realize I couldn't do it. I just had this insatiable appetite and self-belief that was not aligned with my capability. So that would be one of my biggest lessons. The other one is, one day someone told me that what I was doing was not the right way. And I didn't, as I said, I worked for my dad, no one else. I had no idea how the right way was. And I was so hell-bent on doing it my way early that I'd also wished I had had a good advisor or mentor in the beginning. So I didn't actually start getting mentoring until about 2-3 years ago. And I didn't actually have a board until 6 months ago. So my learning, my business's performance has accelerated more in the past 2 years, but more importantly, the last 6 months, because of my ability to tune into hearing other people is at a point now where I'm a better listener today than I was 17 years ago. So I'd say no and grow some good listening ears and get some good people around you that can give you some good, honest advice that you're happy and prepared to listen to and work for.
Mate, I think there's some amazing little tips of value there, definitely. Mate, thanks for joining us today. I know you've got a busy schedule. I know COVID's on. I know everything that's happening. So thanks for taking an hour out of your time to do this for us. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, just I've known you for a number of years now, Bryn. You've always been someone that I've always enjoyed talking to. It's been a great session. Yeah, I hope you have a great 2022, and you and your community. And if you, I'll keep abreast of what you're doing and look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, no problems at all. Thanks a lot for that today, Rob.
Thank you, mate.